Hi everybody, I'm Haley Aguirre with the Sioux City Public Museum and welcome to this video tour of Grandview Park. We're super sad that you guys can't be with us today, but we hope you enjoy learning about the history and landmarks of this really cool park in Sioux City. We'll start off with a little bit of history. The Sioux City Parks Commission was formed in 1906 under E.C. Peters, J.L. Hanchett, and E.P. Farr. The 30 acres of the park cost the Parks Commission just over $17,000. The park was dedicated August 1st, 1908, and the dignitaries present included George Perkins, who was the owner of the Sioux City Journal and a former U.S. representative, as well as Mayor J. Herbert Quick, and featured a concert by the Moses E. Reed Band. Couple of fun facts. Originally, this whole park was used as pasture land for a cow owned by local historian C.R. Marks, and some of the original paths of the park were used as cow paths. When the park was originally dedicated, there were 2,200 different trees and over 55 species. As you might have guessed, Grandview Park was named for its views. The rolling hills of this park allowed for great views of the hills that are now Briar Cliff and the Marketplace Plaza, as well as views of downtown and the Missouri River. There was a major renovation that took place in Grandview Park in 1972, and this removed a lot of the roadways and made the roads through the park that we know today. So join me as we go discover some of these landmarks here in Grandview Park.
Hi there, I'm Tom Munson, and I am so happy to have you with us again. As Haley just said, I am so sorry you couldn't be with us for this great tour of Grandview Park today. But here is our first stop, the statue of Abraham Lincoln at the entrance of Grandview Park. This statue was dedicated in April 25th of 1924. Abraham is 7 feet 10 inches tall. The pedestal he's on is made out of Minnesota granite and is 7 feet tall. Is that right? Boy, I feel extra tall today if that's 7 feet tall. This sculpture was made by Granville Hastings and emulates Abraham Lincoln as he looked giving his second inaugural address. The statue is a gift from John A. Magoon, president of Sioux National Bank, and his wife Elizabeth. John got the idea while he was traveling in Iowa and was in Jefferson City, Iowa, and thought to give this statue to the city, and he hoped for many more to be placed all around Sioux City.
Underneath this plaque was a time capsule that was laid as part of this centennial celebration of Sioux City in 1954. Underneath this plaque is a stainless steel cube buried 8 feet down that contains 125 different items that Sioux City people at the time felt were indicative of Sioux City in 1954. Present at this laying were Mayor George Young, members of the Sioux City Engineers Club, and chairman of the centennial celebration itself. This time capsule is due to be opened July 31st, 2054.
Welcome to the former site of the A.J. Moore Fountain, located very near the basket of hole number 7 on this disc golf course. A.J. Moore was a wholesale druggist with the firm of Hornick, Hess, and Moore, and later Hornick, Moore, Porterfield. It was built in the 1920s and dedicated to his wife, Mabel Allison, who had passed away in 1924. The fountain that was located here was designed by renowned Sioux City architect William Steele, whose other works include the Woodbury County Courthouse, the Davidson Building, and the H.H. Everest House.
So this is probably one of the hardest to find landmarks if you're not looking for it. Right here, this small metal disc is the National Geodetic marker that was put in place in Grandview Park in 1934. The markings on this marker classify it as a horizontal control mark, and these kinds of marks help surveyors by indicating a known latitude, longitude, and elevation. There are several of these marks all around Sioux City.
The largest and oldest feature here in Grandview Park are the Municipal Waterworks reservoirs, which were initially built in 1884 and 1885 to contain 500,000 gallons. They originally looked like a pond, as you can see in this image. Expanded in the late 1880s to 2 million gallons. The North Reservoir was built in 1913 and extended above the ground and was built to contain 4 million gallons of water. The South Reservoir was expanded in 1914 to duplicate the other reservoir and have also a capacity of 4 million gallons. An interesting note, the roofs on these reservoirs were not added until 1942. Starting in 2004, Paul Chelstad and other artists started decorating the reservoirs for Saturday in the Park.
At the site of this archway was once a small wooden shed that held Sioux City's first ever officially licensed radio station, called letters 9ZU. It was built in 1921 and ran by the 23-year-old George C. Call and his friends, who had been sending radio messages between each other since 1912. The station had 5,000 watts of power and featured a horizontal antenna strung between two high poles. Now, radio programs back then weren't really a thing, so this station was mainly used for transferring news and other messages between different towns' radio stations. The first message ever received here was from Vermilion's radio station. That same year, in 1921, Sioux City also got its first commercially licensed radio station, the Davidson Brothers WEAU.
This monument was placed by the Sons of the GAR and its auxiliary on the 6th of June, 1938. Of course, the GAR was the Grand Army of the Republic, a Union veterans organization, and this monument is to honor them.
I am standing at the site of an old colonnade that used to sit right by the GAR monument here in Grandview Park. This colonnade featured trellises on each side of it that held decorative climbing plants. Now, the colonnade was removed sometime in the early 1950s. These stones that you see around me are all that remain.
Here we are at the most dominant feature in Grandview Park, the bandshell. This is the site we are located on right now, was actually the site of a man-made pond before 1934. The Monaghan Post Band had played for years in this park in a small wooden pavilion, but because they were a 7-time national championship winning band, they had desire to have a great performance area. They started fundraising for this music pavilion. Plans were submitted, and in 1933, plans drawn by Sioux City born and raised Henry Kampfhefner were chosen for this monumental structure.
Finally, in November of 1933, funding became available for shovel-ready projects through the New Deal's Civil Works Administration, or CWA. So groundbreaking for the Grandview Park bandshell finally began on March 5th, 1934. However, the CWA ceased to exist shortly after that because it was only ever meant to be a short-lived program. The project was picked up by the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, or FERA, and the City of Sioux City. The total price tag, $51,000. 52 tons of reinforcing steel, 4,250 bags of Portland cement, and 300 bags of white surface cement were used in the bandshell's construction. The last concrete was poured on October 17th, 1934. The surface was completed in November, and the interior was finished over the winter. The dedication program for the bandshell was held May 26, 1935. The dignitaries present included Mayor D.W. Hayes, Bishop Heelan, and Iowa Governor Clyde Herring. The Monaghan Post played their first concert that very night in their brand new home.
Fun facts about the bandshell. The bandshell is 102 feet wide, 51 feet tall. The stage can accommodate a band or orchestra of 100 members or a choir of 300 members. This building in 1938 was listed as one of the finest examples of architecture in the United States. And then in 2000 was labeled one of Iowa's best 100 buildings of the 20th century. The benches we see here were placed in 1998. They replaced the original benches, which would seat 5,000 people.
There are 2 sculptures on either side of the stage of the Grandview Park bandshell. These were designed by Herschel Ellerth of the Public Works of Art Studio in Iowa City. They were cast right here on site, and each one weighs 1,200 pounds. The one on the left side right here is the Nymph and Lyre. This represents Melpomene, the Greek muse of tragedy. With the sculpture on this side, you see a faun playing his reed pipes. This is symbolizing pastoral music.
Just in case you don't believe the things we've said, they're all right here in this plaque, which was placed here by the CWA. It lists dignitaries and people involved in the construction, and this plaque dedicates this structure to the Monaghan Post Band. This plaque commemorates Leo Kuczynski, who directed the Monaghan Post Band, the Sioux City Municipal Band, and the Sioux City Symphony Orchestra for over 50 years.
And finally, we end our tour here at the Sioux City Rose Garden. Grandview Park had a rose garden beforehand up near where the reservoirs are, but it needed to relocate after the focus of the park changed to the bandshell. In 1937, the Sioux City Municipal Rose Garden Society was formed with dignitaries like Vera Ludden of the Sioux City Garden Club, Mrs. Ralph Ricker of the Iowa Rose Society, and Mrs. E.D. Alford of the American Association of University Women. They approached Park Commissioner D.A. Murphy about moving the Rose Garden down closer to the bandshell. The landscape here was originally designed by architect Newell Guernsey. In 2003, the entire rose garden was remodeled. This new design was done by Carl Van Kira of the Midwest Design Group and cost $500,000. Paving stones, like the ones you see all around the garden, were sold to help fundraise. The old roses of the old rose garden were all dug up and stored away for placement of the new rose garden. They were replanted in 2003 along with 100 brand new plants, and then 200 more were added in 2004. Thank you so much for joining us on this video tour of Grandview Park. We hope you've been enjoying all the digital content that the museum has been putting out these past few months, and we hope to see you back inside the museum again real soon.